Hello, this is Lisa LeRose on Connect to Love here on PRNFM, and I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, Michael J. Russ, who always inspires me in so many ways, and I'd like to welcome him today. Hello, Michael. How are you?
Thank you so much. The feeling's mutual. I'm awesome. Feeling's absolutely mutual, and I love being here. Look forward to this every week with you. It's a great conversation.
Yeah, you always find a way to make me smile. And this morning, when we were speaking about what we wanted to speak about on the show today, you sent me one word and you said the present. I mean, there was some other words associated with it.
Yeah,
but it took me right back. That's exactly. I mean, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so much in resonance with me. And there's a saying from a movie from 2008 called Kung Fu Panda. I don't know if you ever saw it, but it was a children's cartoon, and in there. Did you see Kung Fu Panda by any chance?
I can't say that I have. I've probably seen parts of it.
Well, I will have to put that on your
I'm sure I've heard
homework.
The quote.
So the premise is that this panda, who is very much has these dreams about becoming a kung fu master, but has no kung fu skills, is chosen by this master Oogway through a fluke to be the greatest kung fu master that ever lived. But the only problem is he had no kung fu skills, and so he ruminates. And the one gentleman who is played by Dustin Hoffman does the voice. It's Master Shifu, and Master Shifu just can't believe that this Master Oogway, who was the inventor of kung fu, actually chose this panda. And he reminds him, Master Oogway says to him, yesterday is history, tomorrow is the mystery, but today is a gift, and that's why we call it the present. And I've watched this movie, because I have it on, plays for my dog, so it plays over and over and over again. And so, you start to hear the wisdom in these lines that are written. And, one of the things that Master Shifu says, anything is possible when you have inner peace. And if you only do what you can do, you'll never be more than who you are. Little things like that have become part of, it's sort of like my subconscious, because it plays over and over and over again. But I was thinking about the present, and the present being a gift that we give ourselves. And how many people today don't make that time? They don't even, sometimes they can't even be present for other people, that they make plans to meet them. They get together for dinner, or let's go to the movies. And they're on their phone, or they're somewhere else in their mind. They're not really present with that person. But oftentimes they're not even present with themselves. And so when you suggested that we speak about how to be present in your own life as well as for other people, I just was like, okay, this is a gift. This is the gift. This is our gift today. So thank you, Michael.
Absolutely.
So I'd love to hear what inspired you to want us to speak on how to be present in your own life.
Well, one of the I just finished the podcast talking about the resilience of happiness, and then I'll record here in a little bit. And when I was writing it the last couple of days, I was thinking to myself, we've done several episodes on happiness, and happiness really is something you experience in the present. It really is. It's a present moment emotion, and joy is that same way. Matter of fact, all of our emotions, whether they're higher or lower frequencies, they're all here in the moment. Although the interesting thing is about lower frequency emotions like jealousy and anger and envy, despair, hopelessness, they can have a tendency to linger. They can have a tendency. I was just thinking about this. They have legs. They can impact your life, and somehow we as human beings allow lower frequencies, vibrational frequencies, to resonate with greater effect, and to impact our lives in all of our present moment interactions. And if we think about it, the lower frequencies really are generated by past events. Generally, you're not necessarily angry in this moment. You bring the anger into this moment from something that happened some period ago, whatever that time is. And same thing with, being depressed about something or being in despair. You're focused on some past event. You're not here. You're not in this moment. Somebody once told me, and this is really interesting, and I think this was a university tried this or something. I'm not quite certain. I think I heard that. But it's impossible to be. This is the thing. The effect is it's impossible for you to be in a negative state when you're smiling. Impossible. When you're smiling, it's really interesting. That physiological change actually goes straight to your brain and changes. It's like alchemy. So, if you're able to, in a lower frequency mood, be able to engage with something that makes you smile, either you hear a joke, you turn on the comedy channel, you change your state of being. A smile changes your state of being. Just the physicality of it is really, really interesting. I remember that sometimes when I'm feeling a little bit off. I literally go do something that changes my state of being because it's something that I'm passionate about. And so in the present moment is where I wrote, I think, one of my first books. In the present is where life happens. It happens now. The past is the past. My particular quote is: "The past is the past. The future hasn't been written yet." The present does determine how you feel in the next moment. Your thinking in this moment is what determines your frequency in any given time. So you have to be here. You have to be aware and cognizant of how you're feeling and what you're thinking, what your state of being is in any moment, in order to carry those wonderful feelings into the next moment. And when I'm sitting down at a table with people, I like to get together with friends, as I told you before the show, I like to get together with friends on the weekend. I don't like to work or write. I like to, get together and resonate and fellowship with people that we know, that and we go do things together. Like we have a couple of different people we go play golf with Saturday and Sunday sometimes, and then we go to lunch together, or we go eat dinner together, or we go expose them to something else, and a wine bar we go to, or a pizza place, or wherever it is. And the thing that goes through my mind is probably unlike what goes through most people's mind, and that is, how can I make this moment count for something? How can I squeeze every bit of satisfaction out of this particular moment that I can? Because I've come to understand, and I told you this last week, life satisfaction automatically equates to happiness. If you're satisfied about where you are, who you're with, if you are participating in something that is bringing you a sense of satisfaction, happiness is come along for the ride. Okay, it's there already. It's in you. You've released it. It automatically releases happiness. And I've been really, I guess it's a profound concept that I have been thinking about for the last week since I wrote that other podcast and put it in. I said, oh my gosh, life satisfaction. Think about that. I've been talking about it in a different way for years. However, the simplicity of it. If you enjoy gardening and you go participate in the gardening, while you're gardening in that present moment, you're experiencing a sense of satisfaction for what you do, and happiness is the undercurrent. You're happy, and we can actually, as human beings, take those feelings and we can throw them into the future. We can bring them along with us, and we can carry that feeling on, and we can go back and we can channel that activity to get that feeling again. You understand what I'm saying? We can go, when we're feeling off, we can have a thought in the past about something that gave us a great sense of satisfaction, and it'll bring a smile to our face. It'll allow that happiness to flow in that moment. Like we can just massage this around, and I just love that concept and think about it all the time. And I'm just wondering if that's what you do, or am I just out there in the nebulae somewhere?
No, I don't think you're in the nebula at all. You know, and when you were speaking, Michael, I was thinking about, like, right before you close your eyes at night. Like, I have no difficulty going to sleep at night. When I'm done with my day, I'm done with my day. I'm grateful to relax into whatever dream state I might have. You know, I may wake up because of the dogs during the night, but when I wake up in the morning, it's a new day. And I don't even, you know, people ask me, well, when did you do that or what? And I have no concept of date, time, whatever, because for me, that day's done. Whatever happened, you know, 6 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever, it's just a memory, and I don't have any attachment to it. I would imagine that you would be somewhat the same way. That when
exactly.
you wake up and it's almost like a fresh set of eyes. It's sort of like, okay, you know, I start the day. There was a gentleman, I don't know, have you ever heard of a gentleman, his name's Tony Parsons? He's British, and he wrote a book called The Open Secret. And when he was young, he had a sense of that everything, he was in this magical world where outside of time, you know, he didn't have to become anything, he didn't have to do anything. He said, you know, he realized that this oneness was enveloped him. It was just like, what a wonder life is. And then he said one day he woke up and all of a sudden things changed. He entered into a world where things were separate. He said, you know, everybody had their own mother, father, you know, you had to do this, there were boundaries, there was, you know, you had to avoid pain, you had to be taught this,
you mean you grew
whatever.
up?
Yeah, he grew up, right?
He grew up.
And then he said,
became an adult.
You know, he started to seek what was outside of him. And then, you know, he in the book, and it's been several years, so I'm kind of grasping at what it was that, you know, his journey. But as he kind of, you know, rediscovered the secret of what it was like to be that child and where to really be present. And he recognized that he was already everything that he sought. And that was the secret. You know, whether you call it enlightenment, whether you call it being present, whatever it is. And I love what he used to say, you know, people have this shopping cart that they fill with spirituality. He calls it shopping cart spirituality. You know, and you could apply it to anything. Like, well, if I put this in the cart, then, you know, then this will happen, and then this will happen. And, you know, you keep waiting. Well, you know, I'll be enlightened in 18 months. Like, by the time I finish this course, you know, I'm going to be in this different space. But you never really get there, you know, and you have this like reflection of this way that you want to go home and be in that space of your original nature, and because we've gotten so far away from it. And, you know, so when you say that about, you know, everything that you were talking about being present, and, you know, maybe you're in your nebula, maybe I am in my own little cocooned world, and I'm not in reality, but I like my reality, and I'm not really willing to give it up, as I would suspect
I agree.
It's similar to you.
I looked him up. It's very interesting. Tony Parsons does a lot of speaking around Europe. It's really interesting. His big thing is non-duality, which I find very interesting. What you said was that was very profound about being, I should say, in that state where you wake up and, you know, nothing's going on. First, let me just simply say this. Before that, I am exactly like you. I, decades ago, taught myself to forget about what happened yesterday because it wasn't important. And so my mother sometimes, I talk to her like every other day, and she says, what have you been doing the last couple of days? I said, I don't know. Like, I know I did this. I know I did that. I know we met with so-and-so. I played golf on Saturday. You know, and I have to actually go back and grasp what I did. I'm like, I don't know, you know, and I don't know what I did on Saturday. I don't know what on Sunday. I don't know what happened yesterday. I have to look at my phone to see what day it is, and because the interesting thing is, in the career path that I was in, you wanted to just literally forget about yesterday. Yesterday had no meaning to you, and because if yesterday was a day that didn't go so well, you just flushed it out of your mind. And when you got home,
right.
On your way home, on my way home, I just flushed it out of my mind. Sometimes I do it within the next hour, because I understood something. When you're connecting with people relationally, if that's your business, and I'm a persuasive, that's who I am. I am
right.
somebody who's a persuasive personality. I am an influencer. I come to grips with that. That's who I am, and I just basically apply those gifts in a very positive way by guiding people to really cool restaurants, maybe wine, maybe trips, places to go, things to see, people to meet, whatever. People I've connected with, but I've understood that if you're connecting with people relationally, if your goal is to connect with people relationally, you must be in the present. You must be. You have to look them in the eye. You have to connect with them. And if your mind is in the past on something that happened, you really don't connect with them. You look past them. You look to the left of them. You look to the right of them. You don't really see them. And when I'm connecting with somebody, I'm looking at their body language. I'm looking at their facial expressions. I am connecting with them. I'm seeing where their eyes go. I'm looking at. I'm getting a sense of their energy field. I am doing all that at once, and it's happening like in a split second. And I love turning around and asking people questions. I did it like twice in the last couple of days. I'm standing in line at getting a pair of blue jeans for the barn at Marshall's, and there's about 15 people in front of me, and there was a woman in front of me with a dress, redhead. She was just standing there, and I said, "Where are you from?" And she goes, "Tennessee." And I said, "Really? That's awesome. You're down here visiting?" She goes, "Yeah, we're down there." I said, "Why are you in Marshall's if you're on vacation?" She said, I stepped on a jellyfish on the beach. Well, this is the time of the year where the water's so warm. We do have some organisms, and it happens for about a month and a quarter period of time, and you have to kind of watch it. But she stepped on a jellyfish, and said, I was coming in here to see if I could find some shoes, but I found a dress instead. And I said, "Well, I know you're going to find the shoes." She said, "Yeah, I will. That's my next stop, but I have this dress." And so we had a little short conversation, and the like, and I wished her. I said, "This is really great talking with you." And she says, "Oh, I had a great time too." And she goes and checks out, and that's it. Nice. She's gone. And what's interesting about it is that I did the same thing this morning at Starbucks. I just went in there for a cappuccino, and there was another woman standing there who had a golf outfit on and that said Pebble Beach Links. And I said, "Have you been there?" She says, "No, I haven't been there." And I said, "I have. It's really awesome. And I hope that you get there someday. Where are you playing today?" And she tells me all about it, and I kind of help her understand about where she should play next. And I don't care about her name. I don't care about where she's from. It's about the present. It's about the moment, making a momentary connection with somebody, and perhaps, as I like to do, I can elevate their day. I can elevate their state of being.
Absolutely.
So that thing's a lot of fun, and there was something that I listened to Brian Scott. You know that. And there's this guy there's these channelings from 20 years ago from this being named Quo, who's out there, and I don't know where he's from in the universe. And I listen because I pick up very interesting tidbits that can help me live a better life. And one of the things he said was that humans would be so more advanced if they could just forget what happened yesterday.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Oh, I think that's 100%.
I was like, what? Yeah, that was awesome. I was out taking a walk, and I was going, man, that's so profound. It's brilliant. If you could just forget what happened yesterday, you'd be so much better off.
I totally agree. I was going to say I had a marketing teacher in college who did a demonstration of that. He took 3 chairs, and he said, "This is the past, this is the present, and this is the future." And he said, "This is really the only chair you can be in." He goes, "You can try to sit in this one, which was the past." And he said, "And you can pick it up, and you can try to take it with you." You said, but, it gets a little awkward carrying around 2 chairs. And he said, and then some people want to be in the past and the future at the same time, so they're never really in the present. And he picked up these 3 chairs, and he's trying to walk around demonstrate by walking around the classroom, juggling these 3 chairs. And that, how many years ago is that? But it's just as fresh, and I always think about that. And it's like, okay, you can only sit in that 1 chair. And
I love that.
If you want to move forward, you've got to know where you are. And the other thing that when you were talking about those women, the 2 people that you ran into, I really applaud you, because you find the simple wonder in the most amazing locations, and you don't even look for it. It finds you. And if I could liken you to something, it's almost like, and this goes along the same lines as the present. When I was a kid, I used to love looking through kaleidoscopes and turning the colors, and and they would form these shapes, and you'd be like, oh my gosh, this is so awesome! You got to look at this, and you'd hand it to somebody, and they would turn it just like slightly, and it would be gone. And that's what being in the present. That's what being in the present's like. Like, you have that moment, and I can hand you that kaleidoscope, but that moment's gone. But you embrace those, and I really applaud you for that, because you don't know what. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying, and I appreciate your applause. I just, to me, it's become a natural way of living, and because I come across people who are tormented by something somebody said to them in the past, some event that occurred to them. Some of them wear a tragic event like a badge of honor, and I'm like, wait a minute, you are. It's I don't think I've ever said this on radio. I've probably said it in my podcast maybe once. However, I am not a fan of the term survivor after any illness. I'm not a fan of it, because I'm into language and I'm into inner conversation. Words have energy, they have meaning. And when you refer to yourself as a survivor of this or a survivor of that, you're not really referring to yourself in the present moment. You're referring to you're bringing the past forward, and you will manifest eventually if you're not careful. You can bring that negative energy of what you experienced into the present. You are a healthy individual. If you've gotten through whatever it is you've gotten through, whatever challenge that is you had in your life, health or otherwise, then health, accident, whatever occurred, labeling yourself as that is the same as one is manifesting that energy in you, the feelings, the thoughts, everything, and reliving it. And I'm like, wait a minute. If I wasn't healthy and now I'm healthy, I am a healthy individual. I worked through a challenge, one of the greatest challenges of my life, and I am completely of optimal health again. And whatever caused that, I have worked through that. And now I'm a different human being, because every day, well, as Deepak Chopra will tell you, I can't remember the number of days it takes to completely regenerate every cell in your body, but he got down to that kind of nuance, where you are a different person. I was just listening to something like that, this morning. every few days, you are a completely new individual, right? But your mind doesn't think that. Your mind thinks, oh, I'm that same guy I was or gal I was, 10 years ago. No, you're not. You're different, because your experiential wisdom continues to compound. What you learned yesterday, if you burned your hand on the fire yesterday, today you're a different individual because you know not to do that, right? You know not to do that. You know that if you do that again, that's what's going to happen. So you are a different individual because you have new experiential wisdom from that event. And every day you are. And it's golfers do this all the time. They lament about the great game they just played, and they're kind of playing a new game, and then they get all upset at themselves because they think they're going to play exactly the same way they did. And I've said, you're a different individual today. Your physicality is different. Your mental game is different. The course is different. Everything's different. about this. So why would you lay that experience on top of this one and have that expectation that it's going to be the same? It's not. So why don't you forget about that and take this for what it is and play this game in the present, which is one shot at a time, one moment, one thought at a time, one choice at a time. That's the nuance you have to bring to the game. And when you do that, you end up with a better score automatically because you have let go of the past. Every professional, I'll use this analogy once because I love golf, but every professional on whatever level of whatever sport, golf or otherwise, what makes Tiger Woods, because everybody in the world knows who he is, what makes him so good at what he does is that he's learned, he was taught very, very early to be in the present, to focus his energies and attention and passions and intuition and inspiration, creativity into the present, to channel it all there, right? What happened before is of no consequence. Only what counts is how you recover from the consequence of what occurred, which puts you in the present of how do I take this, not where it came from and how it happened. Yeah, you examine that for a moment so that you've learned from it. You gain the experiential wisdom, but then you have to stand there and say, okay, I put my ball in the woods between two trees. I can't undo that, so let's figure out how we take this and now create something new in this present moment. That's really where it is. That's what makes professionals so good. Amateurs have a problem even accepting what they just did, and they're still carrying the past of what they did into the present, and then it impacts their mental and physical game. No ability to play after that because they've just ruined it. And people do this outside of sports. What gets me, and every listener has experienced this. Somebody has said something about you that you didn't like. Maybe they did it out of spite. They did it out of anger. They did it for whatever reason you're never going to know. And this is my point. You're never going to know what the motivation is behind why people do or say or think or take action, whatever it is. You're never going to know it. So, but people it carries a lot of weight what people say based on where you elevate them in your level of importance in your life. Parent, stepfather, stepmother, your boss at work, people you respect, mentors, whatever. When somebody says something to you and you take it as the gospel, so to speak, you take it as being, it has more credibility because it came from somebody that you respect. However, the comment might not have been something that is positive for you. It might have literally been a thought virus that they supplanted in you based on something that they had happen. For instance, I'll give you a real quick little for instance here, and that is people don't allow themselves to experience success sometimes because other people have told them that they would not experience that success because that person at some point in their life didn't experience success from doing that thing. You see my point? This happens. And you compound a lot of these kinds of circumstances, and the kind of thing that you were talking about, Tony Parsons talking about, that playfulness, that inquisitiveness, that curiosity can be literally pounded out of you by the weight. It can be crushed out of you, I should say, is a better analogy, crushed out of you by the weight of thought viruses that other people have given you and you've accepted in your life. And how can you be in the present moment when you're thinking about all these things that people have told you that really don't apply to you because the circumstances aren't the same, the person's not the same, the mindset's not the same? You can do amazing things when you relinquish the past and you put yourself in the present, is really where I'm going with this. You can do a myriad of really cool things, and you can build on those cool things by the feelings of those cool things and let that guide you instead of what somebody else's experience was. And that's what fascinates me, by the way, and that's what it's that kind of nuance that people I encounter don't really think about. And you have to think about it. You have to, in order to be in the present, it takes work, really. Okay, I'll come right out and say it. It takes work to be in the present because there's so many other stimuli and distraction to keep you and taped subconscious experiences, so to speak, where there are tons of triggers out there for you that keep you from experiencing the present moment. Especially in relationship, love. When you think about it, if you had a bad experience with a previous relationship, and that's what you're carrying with you into this present moment, and you meet the best thing that could ever happen to you, there's an instant comparison that most people will make. How's this compared to contrast with what I experienced before? That person might say something. Well, that person, your subconscious, that tape plays. Oh, that person said that before, and can I trust this person because the other person said it and I couldn't trust them? So can I trust? It's like, wow, calm down a second.
Right.
Stay in the present moment. Listen. Let your intuition guide you. Let your angels guide you. Let divine guide you. Look for divine guidance, whatever it may be, but be here and understand that you're a different person than then, and they are a different person than who you knew before. Seems like it might get complicated, but staying in the present has a lot of benefits that we don't even think about most of the time because we're never in the present. We're always thinking about something that happened, right?
You're right.
Eckhart Tolle. If you're not happy in the present moment, it's because you're either thinking about the past or you've projected yourself into the future and you're projecting something negative in the future instead of something positive. I like it. Imagination?
Yeah. I know. I have a few individuals in my life that if, it's like Chicken Little and the sky is falling. It doesn't matter what is happening. I mean, it could be a wedding, but they're fretting about, their daughter's getting married, but they're fretting about, well, I'm just really worried about them on their honeymoon. They're going so far away. I mean, and it's kind of comical. Like a friend of mine just was recently married in Hawaii, and
beautiful. And
it was so interesting because they had, she just wanted to be a light, fun affair, and I think there were 65 people, and I wasn't able to go because of obligations here. I would have really loved to have gone, but it was. She's been an event planner for a long time, and there were some individuals there that got sick afterwards. She said, "Here, it turned out to be a super spreader wedding," and I said, "That's not what people are going to remember. They're going to remember being on the dance floor and the things that you created and whatnot." But I said, you can't worry about that. You guys are newly married, and what are you going to do for yourselves next? What are you going to do today? How are you going to spend the day today? Don't worry about that. You don't have to worry about what other people thought or whatever it is. Look at the pictures and enjoy the beautiful memory, and now you've started this life together. And I think that's what really being present is all about. And, one of the things, and it's interesting because there's being present and then there's also having a presence. And I believe, Michael, you do have a presence. People feel you. When you walk into a room, because you are present and you are fully embodied, people feel that. People
I get looks all the time.
Right.
You see people you notice people looking at you. The look on their face is, who is that?
Right.
Who is that? Who's that person? And you're right. However, and the beauty of it is that that's something that I curate within me. It's not because I'm looking to go in and, be the presence in the room. It's just that I curate a wider electromagnetic field than most people. Mine is expansive. Like I say, lower frequencies are contractive. Higher frequencies are expansive. And so the happier you are, the more joyful you are, the more you're in the present and in love with the present, passionate about life and yourself and, everything going on, the wider your energy field is going to be, the more projecting you're going to be of that positivity, and that people are drawn to that. people are drawn to it because they don't experience it very often.
Right? Because you have a natural flow. Right. You have a natural flow.
Yeah.
You know, you're relaxed in your life. You allow what shows up to show up, and you let things go, you know, as I always say, you know, easily and effortlessly. I was just say that money flows to me.
It could be
easily and effortlessly, stays in my bank account, but it can be that with anything. You know, that you have that. You're relaxed, your body's relaxed, your breathing's relaxed, you are perceptive as to the energies around you. You know, you don't have to even, you're present. And when you have that presence, you know, you're in the moment being present, that presence shines throughout you. And you're absolutely right. You don't have to do anything. People feel it. People look at you because they want what you have, and they're not quite sure how to navigate to that place. And so I am going to turn it over to you, and maybe you can share some of the, I mean, I know it emanates from you because, as you said, you curated it. So do you, for one of our listeners here on Connect to Love, do you have something that you could suggest that they could do as an exercise or something to bring them back into that space of being present?
Talked about it earlier with you in our text about this show. I constantly apply gratitude and forgiveness. You know, one of the things that's interesting is that I do not live in the angst of the past. I don't live in, you know, if I've had things happen to me that other people would look at and go, "You're kidding. You're such a smart guy, and you're such this and that." And I'm going like, you know, I'm an evolving human being just like everybody else. If you have something, people allow events in their life, like bankruptcy. Let's say they got in a business, it robbed them of all their savings and rendered them unable to pay their bills, and they had to, as a last resort, they had to declare bankruptcy. You have a choice. You have a choice to define yourself as that moment going forward, or you can say you can see it in a different way. You can allow it. Say this is not going to. This doesn't define me. What defines me is who I am right here, right now. What I'm resonating. What my state of being is right here. And you walk into a room with a bunch of millionaires and you just declare bankruptcy, and it's not that you're living a lie because something happened. It's just that, you know what, that doesn't define who I am. That doesn't define who I am. I've never declared bankruptcy, by the way, but I mean it. I know I use that as an example because I've had close friends that have, and because of some choices that they made in their lives. And for them, they saw that as, you know, and they had the kind of bankruptcy. You know, they paid their way out of it over time. They got a payment schedule, blah blah blah. You know, but it's what's interesting is I do a lot of meditation, and whatever the time takes, if something happens to me or I make I made a choice and the consequence of that choice isn't really necessarily the best outcome that I could expect, I will forgive myself for having made the choice. And this is it's a tool that is so, you know, I mean, I take it to the nth degree. You got to forgive yourself if you have an accident. Forgive yourself for leaving the house at the time you did. You know, and there's no reason to get upset about it. It's a vehicle as long as you're safe. And if you're not safe, even if you got hurt, you still got to forgive yourself for the choices that you made that led to whatever you experienced, because you had a hand. You got free will. You could have left the house 10 minutes later, 10 minutes earlier. You could have said, no, I'm not going. If you had this little nagging sensation, this voice that said, don't get on that plane, and it was loud, and you decided to get on the plane anyway, and the plane had a problem, and you consequently got injured, well, you just didn't listen to your own inner guidance or outer guidance, angelic guidance, divine guidance, whatever it may be. And so you have to forgive yourself for not listening and say, okay, I'm going to be a better listener next time. If you lost a lot of money in a project, it's not a disgrace. In society, there are lots of trigger words that have negative connotations. Poor, poverty, socioeconomically deprived. These are labels that we put on people who in society we deem as having less than. The point is that if you see yourself as whatever the label is, and it's not a label that is a forward projecting label, but one that has its roots in the past or in circumstances, you wake up every day, like you said, it's a new day. Mm-hmm. You wake up every day, it's a new day. And you have to have a pathway for moving through things that impact your state of being in a negative way. You have to have a pathway for getting through those things. Otherwise, you will carry them with you. And if you carry them with you, it defines your state of being going into the next present moment.
Right.
And that is the balancing line. There is being able to the balancing act, I should say, is being able to recognize that you are carrying a state of being with you into the next moment that is not what you want. You have to vacate that state of being. You have to do everything possible to vacate it. It doesn't define you. Yesterday's 5 minutes ago doesn't define who you are, and that's not even 10 seconds ago. What I said at the beginning of this radio program doesn't define who I am. It's thoughts that are coming to me. I'm conveying them out through the airwaves, and I'm on to the next moment. Everything you and I talk about, and our listeners may not be completely aware of this, our entire conversation in this PRNFM radio show and subsequent podcast is completely unscripted.
100%.
It's completely unscripted. You start talking about that, and you say, you talk for an hour about some interesting stuff, and you talk in depth. The beauty of this that I love is that it is unscripted, that our thoughts play off of each other. You spark something in me, I spark a thought in you. You spark a thought. It just goes back and forth like a ping pong, like playing ping pong or volleyball or anything else. It is true. It's like
I know, and it fills my heart with so much joy. It makes my heart sing. It really does.
And here's the interesting thing. This is another way of looking at this. This entire radio show and subsequent podcast happens in the present moment.
100%.
That is profound as all get out right there, isn't that? It really does. It happens in the present moment. We don't have a script. We're not trying to. We have a central theme, but that theme has a lot of latitude, the stories, the things, where it goes. We kind of set it up in the beginning, and it takes its own path. It makes its own course. And that's the beauty of this that I really, really love. And even in my individual podcast, I have to, in many cases, create a script and get to a point and move forward. And there is some unscriptedness about it because I have to bring it to life. And I think of something that I didn't write down, and I put it forth as an example. However, this is not that way. And I love it for that because it allows us to be in the moment and demonstrate what it is we are attempting to get people to perceive about what they can do with their own lives, what our listeners can do with their lives, and not allowing something that happened to define us in this moment. Nothing you did earlier today or yesterday defines you in this moment. You are a completely different person. You're a new person. And when we start thinking about thinking and acting on that premise, guess what? It's really amazing the miracles that can occur, the intuition that can come about, the inspirations that we get. And then you take it on into your connections, take it into the next level. Now, I use gratitude. I talked about that, forgiveness and gratitude. I'm very grateful every evening before I go to bed. I come up into my office, I sit on my couch, and I just take 3 or 4 deep breaths, and Sometimes I use a pendulum if there's something I need to divine, something going on in my head, and I kind of want my angels to give me an answer. And some of our listeners, they may be a little out there. However, I assure you I'm completely sane. And I do that, and I just kind of sit. And here's the interesting thing about this: when I do that, my cat comes up. My cat knows that every evening I do this, wherever she is in the house. Right? She may be in the bedroom. I'll say, "Oh, you going to go to bed?" No, I'm going to go upstairs. She'll follow me. Maybe not at that particular moment, but I'll sit down upstairs. She can hear me walking upstairs. Comes up and lays down next to me on the couch, thinking it's going to be meditation time like it is in the morning. Oh, yeah. She knows when I sit on that couch, there's going to be good juju, going to be good energy coming out of this guy.
She feels the energy, yeah.
That's absolutely. Awesome. So it doesn't matter where she is or what she's doing. If I start to head up the stairs in the morning, and I swear she knows the word meditate, because I say I'm going to meditate. And my dog, previously, my corgi, used to do the same thing. Rest her soul. She's such a sweetheart. She would literally know I'd come upstairs, and both her and the cat would come upstairs, and I'd say, okay, meditate, and she'd lay down, and lay down, and literally close her eyes. And I'm like, oh my gosh! And the cat does it every time. So, animals can feel our energy. They know they can feel 100%. Everything about us. Yeah, you know this because you have dogs and cats, and I have now just a cat. All animals can sense your state of being. Whatever frequency 100%. You're vibrating, boy, you're just putting it out there, right? They can smell fear, they can stress, right? Yeah, they're broadcasting it. And so if animals can feel it, humans can feel it. And pretty amazing. Yeah. Please, I know you know what I'm talking about. Tell me what you do.
Well, I wanted to, first I wanted to thank you because I discovered Tony's book 20 years ago. And it stayed on my bookshelf. I pick it up and there's a lot of different things that I have reread and, he's got, like you said, he has lots of different videos and some things, but I haven't thought about him in a while. And when you texted me this morning and said, let's talk about being present and the present, it popped into my mind. And I hadn't thought about him in a long time. And I wanted just to read something from that book real quick because he said, in presence, I see there is, what was so fascinating about him is he sort of rediscovered this place, and he called this the choiceless choice. In presence, I see I've never chosen or done anything, but I've only lived through. And so I've never stopped to see or moved the sun or taken one step nearer or further away from my birthright. In accepting my divine helplessness, I enjoy the freedom of never having a past or a future I could call my own. Some people ask, who chooses, who directs this wonderful chaos? But in the arms of the beloved, nothing matters. I can live as though I choose and rejoice in the letting go. And I had forgotten about that. And I want to thank you. I'm grateful to you, Michael, because I rediscovered that today. And that's something that I really needed to pay attention to. I really need it today. So thank you.
Yeah, that is awesome. And it is interestingly enough, divine timing is always on time. Divine timing is always on time. And one of the things that's so beautiful about the conversations that we have, and this particular conversation about the present, is how we can utilize tools to keep us in the present. And like I said, that's why I use forgiveness and gratitude. When I come up here and sit down, I do say I'm grateful. And if there's anything I need to forgive myself for, I will say it right then and there. I forgive myself for this today and for that. Great. All right. I am grateful for this, and this, and I'll close my eyes and I'll feel the energy of gratitude flowing through me. You gotta feel it. It is a feeling, and when you feel that gratitude coming through you, just like forgiveness, you just let it go. Forgiveness is a tool for letting go. Gratitude is a tool for, I should say, when you lose someone close to you, when they pass away, or for whatever reason, it doesn't really matter. Their soul was chosen to vacate, to ascend. You literally have to, when you start focusing on gratitude, the sadness dissipates. When you focus on being grateful, when you write down a list of all the things you're grateful for, if you need to remind yourself and to get yourself in that mode of forgiveness. Grateful for having met them when you did. Grateful for having taken the trip when you did. Grateful for having done this. Grateful for them having shown you how to do that. That gets you away from sadness. It changes your entire frequency, your entire state of being. It elevates it from sadness, lower constrictive sadness and grief, to something incredibly positive. That is gratitude for having had them in your sphere of influence for the time that they were here. And it also should drive you to express gratitude for the people who are here now, and allow you to let go of anger you have, negative dispositions about people. Somebody did something or said something to you, a good friend you've somehow become estranged from, or a family you've become estranged from because of, by now you don't even know why, because it's been so long. It's as when we hold on to that kind of negative perception of people, we forget about the fact that they do evolve, and that we ourselves evolve, and it is likely that they have evolved beyond that. Yet you're still holding on to it. You're holding on to it, and really, when you think about it, what is lacking is love, compassion, empathy, and kindness. Those four things that are so important to us are missing when we hold on to negativity from the past. We have to forgive ourselves for having said what we said, done what we did, blah, 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 blah. You're not forgiving them necessarily. You're forgiving yourself for having been where you were when whatever it has happened. You're grateful that you're here in the moment, breathing the breath you are as the person you are today. And forgive yourself for stepping on that landmine. Forgive yourself for having made the decision that took you to the accident that occurred that put you in a wheelchair. It really doesn't matter. You're a spirit, you're a soul, and everything around you're a ball of light, and you're wearing a suit of clothes. So the suit of clothes changed. Doesn't mean that you changed. And so we have to continually utilize forgiveness and gratitude in every single way in our day. When you had I've been with my girlfriend 20 years. I've known her for 50. And what's interesting is that I am utilizing forgiveness for myself for saying something, or I'm doing it all the time. I find myself in a situation where I might say something or stepping into a controlling mode. I say, okay, I forgive you. Got to forgive yourself for being in a controlling mode in that time. And if you need to apologize verbally, you apologize and you move forward. You clear the air. It's a continual clearing of the air. Relationships, again, just like golf. In golf, I got to forget about the last thing. I got to forgive myself for having made whatever shot that turned out so badly, so poorly, and then I've got to figure out a way to move through it. I've got to let it go. And in relationships, in order to keep them fresh and solid, we have to continually forgive ourselves for things that we've done, and be grateful for having the experience that we're having and having had that experience, and then be in the present. Two people cannot be angry at each other in the present.
You're right. I'm chuckling because, when you keep, you talk about, clearing the past and the future. And I had studied with a Hawaiian kahuna. His name's Harry Jim. And Harry is an amazing man. He was living on the beautiful island of Hawaii. And one morning he woke up and he said to his wife, Sila, Spirit says we have to move to Buffalo, New York. She's like, okay, no problem. Packed up her kids and moved to Buffalo, of all places, right? And I wouldn't have had an opportunity to study with him had he not gone there. But he had to go there in order to meet the woman he was supposed to meet to help him write his book, The Wise Secrets of Aloha. And I'm going to reach out to him, Michael, because I think you would enjoy him. And one of the exercises that I learned from him, and it's so interesting because he did this clearing the past and clearing the future to open up to the present. And he would say, you have to, repeat after him, I release the past with my blessing. I release the past with my blessing. And you say it, then you take 3 deep breaths, and then you make it so. And then, part 2 is, there's some other little things you do with it, but, I release the future with my blessing. And you say that again, I release the future with my blessing. You take 3 deep breaths and you make it so. And then, which I absolutely love, is you open up the present and you say, I choose to be born in every moment now. I choose to be born in every moment now. And then you take the 3 deep breaths and you make it so. And then the last step to it is your rebirth. And you say, now I take the first breath of my new life. And you instruct yourself to do that and to make it so. And I think that's what you're doing with gratitude. Each time you're grateful, you're like, okay, I'm breathing into my new life. Yeah, I release and I let it go. I release and I let it go. I let it go. And I like that, and I will reach out to him because I know that you have a very tender heart towards the Hawaiians and all the native cultures.
I am. What's interesting is my the love of my life at the time, and when I was in college for a couple of years, was Hawaiian. And 50% Hawaiian, and her father was 100%, and we used to go to his house, and he was a wonderful guy, really wonderful. Walter P. Waikiki, what an amazing guy. And his mother was his grandmother and his mother were kahunas. And it was a powerful thing he didn't understand at the time. So when it came time for her to pass, and she passed on all of the things that she had as a kahuna to him, so he could carry on. He buried it all somewhere on the Hana Ranch, in somewhere. I don't know where it is. It's in the ground still. He's passed on. Rest of his soul. He's such an awesome guy. Had a lot of magic. He had a lot of intuition about and sense of people. He had the skills. Definitely had the skills. He just never wanted to perfect them, and he kind of carried on. But we'll love to talk to Jim. I'll look up his book, and I love what you just said with regard to releasing the past and choosing to be reborn at every moment and taking your first new breath in that new moment. These are what I call just processes that help us. They're processes that help us continually align ourselves with the present. And we have to adopt processes. We all have different processes. Mine is my awareness of being in the present moment is so heightened by this time in my life that I at 64 that I'm like I can snap myself into the present moment. When I find my mind wandering, I'm like, no, okay, we're back here. I'm right here again with this person, and I'm looking at them and I'm sensing them, getting a sense. I'm listening to what they're saying, and I'm in this moment of now. And I can do that at this particular point after a lot of practice. For somebody who's brand new, I love this concept of what he said about releasing the past, and I encourage. These are kind of books the things that I love about you is that you have a lot of books that these conversations spark memories of things that we can bring into the present moment to help our listeners, and I love that about it. I love that about you. The wise, the wise secrets of Aloha. Aloha is awesome. It's awesome. I don't know where it comes from. I I step off a plane in Hawaii, and I am home. I've been home since '68 there when I stepped on those islands for the first time. It's an amazing place, and I see a lot of people who are tourists, and they come over, and they get a sense of, it's easy to smell the plumeria and the ginger and other wonderfully fragrant gardenias, fragrant flowers over there. As soon as you get off the plane, it's all over the air. However, it's another thing to adopting the sense of aloha is a little bit more challenging. Because you're going there because you're experiencing the peripheral, but the sense of what aloha means and what it means, what the gifts that Hawaiian people have given to the world, any indigenous people for that matter, have given to the world, are generally a little bit deeper. They're a little bit deeper, and you have to go deeper. You have to want to go deeper in order to pick up on them and actually adopt them into your life. It's really, really interesting. I did find out, by the way, that there is a gentleman who is related somehow to me from Hawaii on Ancestry. I do not know now, and I connected with him. He has no idea how. And I'm like, how in the world did this gentleman and I, he's like a fourth cousin, maybe a fifth cousin. And I'm like, where did this come from? And his name is like, I don't know, 15 letters long. His last name. Typical Hawaiian.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool. But I love the place, and there's a lot to learn from most indigenous cultures, many, actually all of them. And I love learning these little ways of living, and I appreciate you bringing his book, The Wise Secrets of Aloha, and what he said to our conversation today. It's awesome. I learned something. I wrote it down too, by the way, so I can play with it. Because I'm always open to learning something new. It's like,
Yeah, he went back. Yeah, he went back to Hawaii, and now he's back in on the East Coast. So I have his number, and I will reach out to him. Cause,
let's see if we can get him on in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, no, we definitely will. That would be wonderful.
That would be wonderful. Fun.
And, yeah. I know we can play. I learned so many things from him, about bone washing and how you keep trauma, and lalima. I love the lalima concept because I would go to these lalimas where it's a healing, and there would be one person on the table, and maybe one person that had one person on the feet, and two on either side, or four on either side. And all you do is you just lay your hands. You don't have to do anything. You just hold space. And that's about being present. There you go. You just hold space. Yeah. You don't have to do or be or whatever. You just hold space for that person in that moment so that they can receive whatever they're meant to receive. And it's phenomenal.
It is
Talk
awesome.
about levitating off a table. Yeah, holding space.
Yeah, holding space.
Yeah.
I love that. The explanation of what you're doing there, holding space. That's a brilliant couple of words right there that have a lot of meaning. And hold space with people, hold space with your pets, hold space with your experience of the present. Be there, and I used to think, my mind kind of works. I used to be a DJ back in the 70s, so I can hear one thing in one ear, and I can hear something else in the other ear and bring it together in my mind. I kind of got that skill over 4 or 5 years.
What a gift!
And and also, as a drummer, intuitively I can play what I need to play, but be focused on what the other musicians are doing. And whoever I play with, if I haven't played with them before, they're always fascinated by how I know when the song is going to end. And I said, yeah, I know how it's going to end because I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm focused on what I'm doing, yet I'm paying attention. I've got my feelers out to sense what everybody else is doing. And it's like it's being on several different levels at once in the present moment, which is really, really cool. Having several different layers of focus in this moment. And I can have when you sing, when you sing, if you ever talk to a singer, yes, they know the words. However, there are other things going on. They're sensing the band that's playing. They're sensing in their mind, they have on their in their awareness the actual words themselves. They have all these different levels of things going on at the same time, and what you're seeing is just basically the presentation of it. However, all these other things are happening, and you know what the guitarist is doing, the bassist is doing, you know what the drummer's doing, you know what everybody's doing, and it's really a lot of fun. I'll tell you, I'll kind of leave you with this because I know we're almost out of time. There's a song called "Since I Fell for You," and it's one of my all-time favorites, and it's the one song out of any other, because I don't know many songs to sing, because I really haven't focused on memorizing a lot of words. But I know this particular song, and I have sung that song with many piano players in public places. And I've just walked up and said, since I saw it, can I sing it with you? They go, yeah, great. And I don't know them. They don't know me. I don't know how the song is going to be played. I hear the entrance. I hear the intro, and we kind of roll with it, rock with it. I think I did it in Atlanta Airport. There was this guy playing the piano one Christmas, and I was going through there on the way home, and I always like going to this pizza place called Verrazano's in the A Concourse, and I said, hey, do you know this song? He says, yeah, I know this song, and I just sang it with him. It wasn't no microphone, no nothing. Some people could hear it, some people couldn't. It was just between me and him. I just sung the song, and I loved it. Did it up in Portland at a rooftop patio at a rooftop bar at the Hilton. A great piano player up there, and those kind of experiences are really rather fun. Most people won't step out and do that sort of thing in front of a crowd of people, and however, me, it's just second nature. However, it's fun to actually put yourself in a position where you need to be in the present moment, where you're forced to be in the present moment. You can't be somewhere else. You have to be there. You have to be listening. Right. You have to be kind of understanding where the song is going and the words and get the timing, all tempo, all that stuff is going on at the same time. And that is so much fun. It doesn't matter how you do it. You just have to practice and practice being in the present moment and see how it changes your life, because it does change your interaction with the people. It changes how you feel about yourself. It changes everything, in my view.
100%. 100%. And I thank you for being present with me and holding space with me, Michael. Each week.
I love that.
Our audience members are so grateful to each one of you for joining us. And we are going to be putting together some things so you can reach out to us, because we'd love to have your comments. If you'd like to email us at connect and the number 2 love@gmail.com, we would welcome any comments. That was just, Michael said, we really would love to get, some comments back from our listeners and hearing what's bubbling for you. I just am so grateful to you, Michael, and looking forward to our next adventure, our next unscripted Being Present moment.
I love it.
And I'd love you to sign off with whatever you'd like to leave the audience with.
The gratitude is mirrored right back to you. I couldn't do this without you, and I think you know that. We partner up, and it's wonderful. Frank Sonnenberg said something, 4 very simple words that I'll leave you with. It's leave the past behind. Leave the past behind. It's of no use. It doesn't serve you in the present. What serves you is being in the present. Okay?
Absolutely.
Love you all.
Love you too.